Kansas State outlasts TCU. And they are Big 12 champions for the first time in a decade. And after fighting from behind in the fourth quarter yet again.
Welcome to Gold Ball Sports, episode 11. Our producer is Big Daddy Dave, along with Ken Keller. I'm Scott Chastain. Good to have you here. We're a little bit early on this Monday, but it's all good. This will be on Facebook all week for you to watch. So give us a watch if you can't catch it live. The college football playoff. You know, I didn't think I would have to start my Monday listening to Chris Fowler talk for any more time than I had to listen to Saturday, but it's all good. Yeah. Chris and Kirk, the most annoying broadcast. They've taken the mantle from Nestler and Gary to me as the most annoying broadcasting team. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, ABC, ESPN, Disney conglomerate. The college football playoff is set. We've been working our way towards that since this show started. And here we are, Mr. Keller. It's all done.
Yeah, you know, we talked on episode 10 last week about, you know, that the committee would probably want it to just go status quo, no issues. Well, it did not go status quo, but the committee didn't do a whole lot about it, Scott. And I got a bone to pick with the committee here when we have our down and dirty debate here shortly.
Well, I'm not surprised you do. It's a meatless bone, but you can pick it. There ain't no meat there, so you ain't gonna get no meat off of it. But it's a meat. It's a bone you can pick. But Friday night was just great.
Oh yeah,
watching Utah just beat the snot out of Southern Cal. You knew that the poll was going to get shaken up because you know Southern Cal wasn't like TCU. They weren't going to stay in there with a loss. It's really confusing to me that the committee says it values conference championship games so highly that you get there, but it doesn't seem to care if you win or not, which I find interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You bring up a great point. But first of all, I got to give you kudos because on episode 10 last week, you picked the Utah Utes to upset Snoop Dogg's USC Trojans, and boy, did they ever. A 17-3 deficit. They come back and blitzkrieg the USC Trojans 47-24. The Trojans, listen to this stat right here, they had been 64-5. 64-5 in 14-point games over the last 10 years where they had a lead of 14-plus points. Out of those 5 losses, 4 of them have been to Utah. I think Utah is USC's kryptonite, no doubt.
Utah's the best team in the Pac-12, and they proved it again.
Well, and think about it. You know, when you look at, you know, the overall Power 5 conferences and you talk about strength of schedule and you talk about the overall strength of the teams, look, this team, Utah, beat USC, which was ranked number 4 in Tuesday's poll. If they win, they're in. They lose, they're out, maybe. And look what they do. They beat them twice. Florida Gators perhaps kept the Utah Utes out of the playoffs, Scott.
Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. You know, I think Utah is one of the teams you see around the country and you say, they could play in the SEC. Now, I'm not sure how good they could be in the SEC, but they play a little more of a SEC style, a little more physical than Southern Cal was ready for Friday night. And, of course, you know, Caleb Williams getting hurt certainly didn't help the Trojans any. But I was really impressed with Utah. It started the weekend off good.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this Heisman Trophy is Hendon Hooker back in the forefront after Caleb Williams' injury and his performance, you know, in that loss. He lost 2 games now, and so who do you think's going to win the Heisman? I know that wasn't on our agenda, but it just came out. Let's throw it in there.
Roll.
That's how we roll, man. Do you have a favorite?
Of course I have a favorite. Don't you have a favorite?
I don't know. It seems like,
Don't you hope Bryce Young wins the Heisman?
Well, when a guy gets to the top, there's an injury. It's crazy. It's going to be interesting. I think the most
So you just got to look
years.
at the body of work.
Yeah.
You got to look at the body of work. If they played 8 games, 9 games, 10, 11, 12, whatever it is, look at the body of work. I think Hendon Hooker's body of work stands up with anybody's. So, yeah, he's my guy. Absolutely.
When Hooker, suffers the ACL injury against the South Carolina Gamecocks, Bryce Young hurts his shoulder earlier this season in the Arkansas game. You see the Michigan running back not get to play in their conference championship game. So now Caleb Williams hurt. So that's 4 key guys that have all been announced, have been listed as serious Heisman contenders, all injured. So who's the last man standing?
I'll tell you what's going to be interesting to me, because I've seen this dynamic for a long time. Let's see if Blake Corum, who's injured for the last couple of games, from Michigan, let's see if he doesn't get an invite. And let's see if Hendon Hooker from Tennessee does or doesn't get an invite.
Oh, man.
Okay,
you're trying to rile up the Tennessee fan base again.
Well, we've been down this road before.
Yeah, I mean,
if you think Michigan doesn't get preference when it comes to Heisman Trophy winners, you're wrong.
Yeah. And let's take a look at this poll. Okay, so we talked about USC going down, but TCU also goes down. Now, folks, in the poll, the final poll last Tuesday, the last Tuesday of November, the final 4, the 4 ranked top teams was Georgia number 1, okay, Michigan number 2, TCU 3, and USC 4. So 3 and 4 lose. Okay, now TCU did beat Kansas State early in the year. They lose that game in overtime, Scott. What a game right there. You talked off the air about that key stop at the goal line by Kansas State to put that game into overtime.
Yeah, that was critical. It's actually in overtime.
That's right, it was in overtime.
TCU had their shot, couldn't score. Kansas State kicks a field goal, wins the game.
Yeah, so Big D's put the graphic up of the poll from November 29th, and then we have the final poll yesterday that really has all the teams, the top 25 teams. So that's going to lead us into our down and dirty debate tonight, Scott. So when you look at the top 4, you think 3 and 4 lose? Well, TCU's probably going to drop. Certainly USC is. That was their second loss, so that TKO'd them. So you think Ohio State and Alabama may move up. One of those 2 teams did.
Yep. Let's get down and dirty. So the question here, quit punching me.
Gut punch.
The question here is, did the committee get the best 4 teams? That's my question to you. Did the committee get the best 4 teams?
Epic fail. No, they did not get the best 4 teams. What is the Big 12 championship now? Is it a consolation game? You're going to mean to tell me that Kansas State beats TCU, their undefeated season wrecked, and they don't drop a single spot? They stay at 3. Now, look, when I looked at the makeup of this committee, I knew Alabama was in trouble last week before these games were played. I told y'all that on Go Ball Sports episode 10. 1 representative from the South on Boo Corrigan's committee, and that's Mitch Barnhart, the athletic director at Kentucky. There was a Nebraska player on there. There was a Notre Dame player on there. There was an AD from Wyoming. We have Navy. We have Colorado. We have a couple of ACC school ADs on there. Former Wake Forest and Ohio head coach Jim Grobe. We have a Mountain West presence. We have a Pac-12 presence. We have a Big Ten presence. We have a Big 12 presence. Where is the SEC representation, Bowl Committee? The fix was in. Epic failed to Boo Corrigan. The best 4 teams did not, Scott. I solicit to the jury. They did not get the best 4 teams. TCU could not beat anybody in the SEC West, not even a single team. Yes, that includes Arkansas, and that's my case. As far as is the strength of schedule, Alabama 8th and TCU 35th. Alabama loses 2 games on the last play of the game. Scott, not all conferences are created equal. The
So
SEC
true.
much, much stronger than the Big 12. And to make the consolation game, the Big 12 game championship, a consolation game, is an absolute farce. And for the committee to leave them at 3 and not drop them, Georgia was number 1 last year when they played Alabama in the SEC championship. They got beat and dropped 2 spots. 2 spots. They dropped from 1st to 3rd. Scott, TCU drops no spaces. TCU should be out. Alabama should be in.
You're so wrong. So wrong. The committee definitely got the 4 best teams because you see, the committee has no clue about the difference between the SEC and the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and the Big 10. TCU could probably beat some of the teams in that sorry SEC West this year. It's the SEC East which dominated the West in head-to-head competition this year. It's the SEC East that TCU could probably not beat any of the teams. But I digress. The committee obviously is so clueless about what they're doing that all they're looking at is 1-loss record. That's all they're looking at. How easy was it this year? It was the easiest pick ever. You got 2 teams with no losses. You got 2 teams with 1 loss. And then you got a bunch of teams with 2 losses. The committee obviously said, we can't take into consideration strength of schedule. We can't take into consideration head-to-head competition. We can't take into consideration this or that. Let's just look at the 1-loss record. Hell, a kindergarten class could have determined this playoff format here with these 4 teams. A kindergarten class could have said, well, they got no losses. They got no losses. They got 1. They got 1. Everybody else got 2. Must be those 4.
Yeah.
So I'm being extremely sarcastic in saying that the committee got it right. They just, lowest common denominator, they took the obvious 1-loss record, and that's what they went with. Yeah. Now, you and I could debate whether what you think Alabama ought to be in the playoff. I think Tennessee should be ahead of Alabama. We can debate that all night. We debated it last week. We probably debated it the week before. But that's over now. It's over now. I'm really happy that Tennessee finished 6th instead of 5th. I'm sorry. But a Sugar Bowl game against Kansas State just does not match up with an Orange Bowl game against Clemson. But you know the happiest thing about all of this, Ken? You know the thing that makes me the happiest? As you wear this shirt that says "Own the Playoff."
That's right.
You know, the happiest thing about the playoff for me is that both Alabama and Clemson are not in it. It's the first time ever that we've had a playoff that neither Alabama nor Clemson is in the playoff. That makes me very, very happy and makes you a little, I don't know. You're a couple of years behind in that sweatshirt.
Much to the chagrin of Tennessee fans. Alabama was in the national championship last year. 7 out of 9.
I know.
So 7 out of 9 for the college playoffs for Alabama. Nick Saban stated his case for the committee. Big D, cue that video up if you have it, please.
I do.
What stood out to you the most?
Well, I think the way we finished, I think there's some arguments for this team. I think that, during the middle of the season, we started out really strong. Bryce got hurt at Arkansas. So you got to kind of look at how teams are playing at present. We finished 3-0, played some pretty good teams, played Ole Miss on the road when they were number 9 in the country. But Bryce really missed the A&M game. We overcame that, won that game, and came back and couldn't really practice for the next month. Was on a very low pitch count, couldn't throw the ball much in practice. So I think that affected how we sort of developed on offense. So we lost 2 games on the road to one top 5 team, one top 10 team on the last play of the game. But now that he's healthier and he's able to practice, I think we're a different team. And I think you should look at the circumstances around a 2-loss team versus a 1-loss team. And how are they playing at the end of the season? How are they playing at present? And I think our team played well down the stretch, and we're playing well at present. I mean, we're 5th in the nation in offense, scoring offense, 10th in defense, scoring defense. So, we had some vulnerabilities in the middle of the season and a tough part of the year when we had some tough games on the road and got beat on the last play of the game twice, which, hopefully we could do better. We learned from that, but our team showed a lot of resiliency to stick with it, finish the year the right way, continue to improve, and we ended up winning our last 3 games.
Okay, Scott, so how you finish or end the season should matter. Alabama played 5 top 25 teams on the road and good opponents on the road. They lost 2 of them on the last play of the game, as Coach Saban said. But the criteria to meet to the best 4 teams is head-to-head and what the point spread is going to be on it. Alabama would be probably 17-point favorites over TCU on a neutral field.
Since Tennessee beat Alabama,
I say,
Tennessee would probably be 20.
I say that they should not. TCU is not one of the 4 best teams. Not only did the committee mess up the 4 best teams, they got the order wrong. How do you not move Ohio State up to 3 and drop TCU to 4, and you don't even drop them a spot for losing the consolation game to avoid a Big Ten matchup? That's not their job, though. Their job is to put the best 4 teams in and seed them correctly no matter what.
So you should study a little better, partner. Study the criteria that the committee uses. One of the things that they try not to do is do a rematch in the first round. So that's why TCU's 3rd and Ohio State's 4th.
It should be by what you earned it on the field in the top 4, 1 through 4.
Well, it's obviously not.
It should be the best teams 1, the second best 2, the third best 3, and the 4th best 4. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, TCU.
You're naive, Ken.
So do you think that I think the Georgia Bulldogs got ripped. And this is why the Georgia Bulldogs got ripped. Do you think Kirby Smart and Stetson Bennett and company would rather play TCU the first round or the Ohio State Buckeyes? Ask them in Athens how happy they are about that first round matchup because the committee wanted to avoid a Big Ten first round game. That is bogus, and that's on the committee in Boo Corrigan as well.
I think Georgia could care less. Okay.
We'll see.
I think TCU's better than Ohio State.
Georgia's less than a 7-point favorite in that game at home.
Okay.
In the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta.
I'm not
that'll
sure.
Tell you something.
I'm not sure how long we're going to be down and dirty on this.
We're done.
But I do believe that the committee did the best they could with their limited knowledge of college football, with their biases. And look, it's all about money. It's all about money. I mean, Nick Saban was everywhere this weekend pleading his case for his team. That's okay. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with Nick doing that. That's what he should be doing.
Well, it's
wait a minute. The problem is that Alabama fans continue to try to make this fantasy that the media is somehow against Alabama when all they do is fawn over Nick Saban and Alabama. They did everything they could to get Alabama into the playoffs. The TV's, Kirk's just going to have to talk to that committee and get them straight because when you have Nick Saban on at halftime of whatever it was, Big 12 championship game, whichever one it was, But you don't have, any other coaches pleading their case.
Yeah.
Well,
it's awful
it's
funny.
obviously biased.
It's
towards
awful funny
Alabama.
because Ohio State should have been having to plead their case after losing by 22 points their last game of the season. They get a free pass back in, automatic free shuttle ride,
Well,
right to the playoff to number.
If it's how you
to number
finished,
4.
I didn't see anybody finish better than Tennessee. Tennessee won their last game 56-0 with a backup quarterback in, the best backup quarterback in the country, by the way. If a couple other teams had a quarterback the caliber of Joe Milton III, they might have another win. So, how you finish, I'll go along with that argument. I thought Tennessee finished stronger than anybody. Remember, Vanderbilt was a 5-6 team. Vanderbilt was coming off 2 straight SEC wins. Vanderbilt, Auburn, basically same record.
I'm looking at my SEC bowl bid, Scott, and I don't even see Vanderbilt on here.
Yeah, well, they lost that last game, so you should see them right next to Auburn. Right next to Auburn. Yeah. Find Auburn and Vanderbilt will be right next to them.
They're not there.
Yeah, they're not there either. So I again, don't blame Nick. He's doing his job. The bias towards Alabama has never been more obvious than it was this weekend. And I'm sorry for you and all your millions and legions of bandwagon fans. Not that you're a bandwagon fan, because I know it's in your blood, but there's a lot of bandwagon Alabama fans. It's an easy bandwagon to climb on. It wins most of the time. It didn't win this year. It didn't get picked for the playoff this year. And Alabama fans are just going to have to deal with it. Going to have to learn to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take months. You'll still be talking. I guarantee it. When we start this back in July, you're going to pick it up right here. I have no doubt.
Yes,
no
sir.
doubt. We're going to start our preseason college football talk with how the committee screwed it up.
I'm anxious to see how TCU does. Now, I guarantee that committee's pulling them to be close in this game against Michigan, but we'll see.
Well,
I guarantee you, Michigan's smiling too, because they would rather play TCU as is to Ohio State.
I don't know why you say that. They just beat the snot out of Ohio State.
Yeah, but we'll see. It's hard to beat a team twice in one season.
Utah showed that it's really not that hard to beat a team twice in one season.
We'll see. There's a thing called revenge factor and mental edge. We'll see how it turns out.
There is, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit for Ohio State to win that game. So if they win that game against Michigan, will you then say that they were worthy to get in?
If TCU wins that game?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. If they win the game.
If Ohio State beats Georgia, will that prove that they were worthy to get in?
I think Ohio State's a better team than TCU is. I would have put Ohio State in. I'm just saying, why didn't they have to answer and why didn't they have to politic? Because their resume's no better than Alabama's. All they played this year was Michigan.
You missed
Michigan and Notre Dame.
You
That's all they
missed my
played.
opening.
That's all they played 2 games all season.
You missed the opening point, and that is the committee doesn't know enough about football to look into all the stuff we look at.
Yeah.
All they looked at is 1-loss record. Ohio State's got 1, Alabama and Tennessee got 2.
Fail by Boo Corrigan in the committee.
Nailed it. Perfect college football playoff.
That's the way we do.
There we go. There we go. Let's go to the podium, shall we? No. I'll tell you what. Hold off there, Diamond Dave.
Okay.
Let's I don't know. Let's review these games just a little bit.
Conference championships.
Let's take a look at Georgia's kick block and TD return against LSU. It was a big play in the game.
Mm-hmm.
To try to put LSU on the board first. High snap. They got it down and it's blocked. Georgia stuffs it. And now here comes the run back. If this stands, it's going to be about a 95-yard touchdown.
It will stand. LSU is acting as if it was an...
It just amazed me right there that nobody knows the rules.
It's incredible.
Including Brad Nessler. If it stands. Now, Gary Danielson, to his credit, it's going to stand.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He knew the rules.
Yeah.
But none of the players did. I think a
Bizarre.
couple of the officials were just like, oh, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, bizarre.
Blocked field goal is just like a blocked punt. It's
Yeah.
live football, always has been, always will be, hopefully.
So the offense, if the ball goes beyond the line, they can't pick the ball up and try to
No, the
return
offense
it. The
can.
offense can't. But if they touch the ball and they don't possess it, it is a live ball where the defense can get it. That's what happened to Leon Lett, or in the game against the Dolphins. I'm sorry, that was wrong. It's a dead ball. The offense can't do anything with it. The defense picked the ball up, but it was bizarre to me that LSU just sit there looking at the play.
Well, so did Georgia.
Yeah,
They all just stood there and looked at the ball. Georgia finally said,
yeah.
a guy looked around and somebody told him, pick it up and run.
Yeah. And of course, it's a dead ball when the official blows it down where the defense, normally the defense skirts away from it in the ball game. It's about, at the end of the game, it's over, but it was a live ball. There was no reason, it's crazy how it happened. But I was more surprised with LSU's reaction of just sitting there not trying to.
Well, if there's any team that's not going to know the rules, to me, it's going to be LSU.
Yeah. I mean, they just didn't try to make the tackle hardly or anything. I mean,
They were
all walked
done.
off. Yeah, they were done. And
They
to
were
me,
done.
that was the ball game.
It
I mean, it's
was.
a 50-30 game, but man, when you have a play that deflates you like that to start the game, and it's 7-0 right there on the special teams play, and you're playing Georgia in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, 17-point underdogs, it's going to snowball on you. It did 50-30. Georgia wins going away. We projected that to happen here on Go Ball Sports.
There's
Big
just something wrong with Georgia getting all these Georgia Dome games.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about luck. I mean, they figure out where these games are going to be in advance, so it's not like they set it up. But man, what a setup for Georgia.
Well, look, they started the SEC championship in '92, and for many, many years they played that game in Birmingham. There was a lot of people, they moved to move the game out of Birmingham because they thought it gave an unfair advantage to Alabama and Auburn. Now is it time to discuss moving the game out out of Atlanta? And if you did, where would be a good neutral place to put it? Is there such thing as a neutral place?
There is no such thing as a neutral place. Mm-hmm. In the Southeast, you're always going to be close to somebody. It's not like the Georgia Dome's in Athens, it's in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But I tell you where they're going to have an option, because it's got to be a dome stadium.
Yeah.
We're going to have one in Nashville in about 3 years. There's going to be an option for the SEC to maybe swap back and forth like they do the basketball tournament. They move it around, but Bridgestone is really the home now of the SEC men's and women's basketball tournament. Don't be surprised if when the Dome Stadium comes to Nashville that you see an SEC championship game there at some point. And, heck, if Vanderbilt's in it, we'll cry foul.
Yeah. And if you,
Oh, that's the best one all day.
That
right
was.
there.
And the thing is, if you don't think it's a home field advantage for Georgia, you're crazy. I was there. We called the game together in Finley Stadium, Tullahoma against Elizabethton. I left that game immediately. You went down for the post-game interview with Coach Olive. I headed straight to Atlanta and watched Alabama. My son and I went to watch Alabama play Georgia last year in the SEC championship. Alabama routed them 41-24, but it was 85% Georgia, 15% Alabama at that game. 85-15. Look, it is a big home field advantage for the Georgia Bulldogs, no doubt.
It was about 70-30.
70-30.
Georgia over LSU Saturday, I think. And, it's Georgia's going to have the advantage over Ohio State crowd-wise.
Yeah, sure they will.
That's just the way it is.
I'd say you're right. It's probably going to be about 60-40 or 70-30 in that game as well.
So, championship games, Michigan routed Purdue. What a joke of a championship game that was. Clemson routed North Carolina. Clemson got a new freshman quarterback. It never fails. Everybody finds their quarterback before they play Tennessee. So now Clemson's found their freshman quarterback, so it's time to play Tennessee.
Yeah, and I watched him earlier the year against Syracuse when he was relieving DJ Ungale, who has entered the transfer portal. So Tennessee fans, you're going to see freshman Kay Klubnik, and SEC, you're probably going to see DJ Ungale
he's
arrive
gone.
somewhere in our conference.
Nope, I disagree.
We'll see.
He cannot play in the SEC. Mountain West, maybe. Pac-12, maybe.
Be
Big 12,
interesting to see
maybe.
where he lands.
Maybe Hugh Freeze signs him at Auburn. Who knows?
Maybe.
But, yeah, you know, the big shocks, Kansas State over TCU and Utah over USC. Georgia, Michigan, Clemson basically took care of their business. So now let's go to the podium.
Yeah,
One more.
the difference did surprise me of the point differential of the Clemson North Carolina game. I thought that would be. I picked North Carolina to win last week. Boy, that was a blown pick, wasn't it?
Yeah, you blew a couple.
You picked them too. I mean, you both picked North Carolina.
Did I?
Yep.
Let's watch the tape. No, let's don't. Let's go to the podium.
There we go.
It's medal time. It's podium time.
yeah.
It's where we hand out medals to our most worthy recipients. We hand them out to our most worthy recipients. You know, people who did something exceptional this week, or a team that shined, or just whatever we want, basically. Well, we want to put the spotlight. Ken, let's begin with your bronze medal.
Well, my bronze medal is going to Utah head coach Kyle Whittingham. All he did was beat the USC Trojans twice this year, took down the mighty Trojans, knocked them out of the college football playoff, and they won their second straight Pac-12 championship. And boy, it was a bloodbath because it knocked the conference out of a playoff berth. So it was a big win for Utah, an unfortunate loss for the Pac-12 in general. But I'm telling you, that got to be impressed with Kyle Whittingham. The guy seems to be very happy there. You talked about the physical brand of football, Scott. They play kind of like an SEC team on the lines of scrimmage, and makes you wonder what if they had won in Gainesville earlier this season. So my bronze medal on Gold Ball Sports episode 11 goes to Kyle Whittingham and the Utah Utes. They deserve it.
And you know, how did Florida beat that team, right? I mean, Florida turned out to be about as average can be.
Yeah.
And they beat Utah.
Yeah.
Early in the season, weird stuff happens. Early in the season. But it counts, even though Nick doesn't believe this, it should count the same all the way through.
I think it should.
Should count the same
I
all the
think
way
it should.
through.
You want to certainly finish strong. If you're going to lose, the trend has always been lose early, don't lose late.
If you're going to lose a conference championship game.
Well,
My
now
bronze
that- yeah.
medal goes to the Kansas State defense. In overtime, they hold TCU 4 plays. They just can't get in the end zone. So Kansas State defense gets the bronze medal. Have we got something?
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Miller is the batter.
Okay. So yeah, they get to
He's got the
overtime.
ball. No! Kansas State stops him.
And TCU can't get it in. Now,
K-State's defense
I give
rises
TCU
up
some
with the goal
credit,
line.
and this will come back later in the show, but at least they tried to quarterback
So
sneak.
their possession will win them a Big 12 title.
But they couldn't get it
Would
in.
it stand?
Yeah, great defensive standby.
Kansas State,
the
first conference
Wildcats.
championship in 12 years. You know, Kansas State, somebody you always think, Kansas State. But they showed solid football program, beat a really good team, not a top 4 team, but a really good team. And that's my bronze medal. You're silver.
That's a good one. Well, my silver medal is going to the Cincinnati Bengal quarterback, Joey B. Joey Burrow. All he did was slay Patrick Mahomes for the 3rd time in his career. Burrow 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. They took down the Kansas City Chiefs 27-24, just like they did in the AFC Championship. Another win for Joey B. This guy checks all the boxes that you want in a quarterback. Great competitor, charismatic, field general, accuracy, pocket presence, and the guy's just a great leader. Scott, he gets my silver medal tonight. Joey Burrow, Joey B deserved it. Watch out, AFC. The Cincinnati Bengals are hot right now. It's because they got one of the top young quarterbacks in the NFL, and he owns Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs right now.
In the post-game press conference, Joe Burrow looked like Macaulay Culkin, trying to look like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Very strange. But he does look a lot like Macaulay Culkin. A lot. Great performance by the Bengals. That was a fun game to watch. You notice how the Chiefs, every week, it's a great game. The Chiefs,
Exciting.
even though the Bengals won and they're hot and everything, but the Chiefs just bring out the best in everybody, don't they?
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do.
And when they lose close.
And when they lose close, and
lose
it's usually
close.
pretty exciting.
Yep.
Yeah. My silver medal, Ken already touched on it, goes to Utah. Just the way they beat up Southern Cal. I know Caleb Williams got hurt, and that has, a lot to do. I talk about quarterback play a lot. You got to get great quarterback play, and he was certainly hobbled, but Utah just never let up. They just did what they do and beat down USA, and like you say, cost the conference, $15 million or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll make that up. They're not going to be hurting for money. But, it did cost the conference a chance in the college football playoff. Have they – let's see, Washington went one year. There just hadn't been much Pac-12 representation in the college football playoff.
And that's a great lead-in, Scott. You wonder what the future is for the Pac-12. They're going to lose two of their marquee teams, the UCLA Bruins and the USC Trojans, going to the Big Ten. But they did pick up prime
That's
time.
just insane.
The Colorado Buffalo. So maybe prime is prime to take over the Pac-12. We'll see if he can get past Utah.
Yeah.
Maybe Utah starts to run and dominates that conference.
He's got to get past Utah. And
They won it the
let's not
last 2
forget
years.
Oregon's out there pretty good.
That's right.
So that's my silver medal, the Utah Utes. Ken, your gold.
My gold medal award winner was easy. We looked at the top 4 NFL MVP candidates last week, and we came to a consensus here at Gold Ball Sports. There seems to be a consensus around the NFL. You talking heads all day yesterday. We were talking about Jalen Hurts as a possible MVP contender and perhaps a leader. I think he certainly is a leader. All he did was torch the Tennessee Titans as they ran away from the Titans 35-10, dominated that game. 2 100-yard performances by their wide receivers. The offensive line looking strong, but Jalen Hurts is the leader. All he's done the last 2 games, folks, 713 total yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. Can you say MVP? MVP. The MVP in the NFL right now is Jalen Hurts, and he gets my gold medal tonight on episode 11 of Gold Ball Sports.
He is the MVP right now. But the Titans. Derek ain't busting off no 80-yard runs anymore. King Henry is getting throttled. And they're not giving him the ball 30 times. They're not committed to the run, and so they're getting beat.
Yeah.
And that signals to me, as of now, early playoff exit for the AFC South leading Tennessee Titans. Now, they're going to win that division. I don't care if they go, how many games they play? 17?
Yeah.
If they go 7-10 or 8-9, they're probably going to win that division.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think this day and age, you really got to have a franchise quarterback if you're going to win the Super Bowl. And really, you look at Josh Allen, you look at Joe Burrow, you look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at Jalen Hurts, the year he's having. Those 4 teams, probably the best 4 teams in the NFL right now. And look, Titans, you don't have a franchise quarterback. You're not taking any pressure off the running game. The offensive line's not blocking for Derrick Henry. You cannot be one-dimensional in the NFL. You can't be all-run. You got to have balance. These good football teams have offensive balance. The Titans have no offensive balance right now. And they got exposed by A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia Eagles.
I try my best to cheer for the Titans, but I was cheering for A.J. Brown because he got his revenge.
He did.
Right?
He sure did.
And he enjoyed the heck out of it when he was getting it. So that was fun to watch.
Yeah, he did.
My gold medal goes to the most recent Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. Elected this weekend, the crime dog, Fred McGriff. The Crime Dog, 493 homers. Crime Dog's been waiting. He's on that Legends list, and that's tough to get off of. No Pete Rose, but Fred McGriff, member of the 1995 Atlanta Braves World Series champions, spent 4.5 years in Atlanta, spent time in L.A., other places, but finally getting in the Hall of Fame. Score another one there for the Braves. You got Smoltz, you got Glavine, you got Greg Maddux, a lot of members of that 95 team. It's a great franchise. Well, they win 14, 15 division titles in a row. Fred McGriff, Crime Dog, Hall of Fame, worthy recipient of my gold medal tonight.
Nice one. You got,
Right?
hey, crack it down, man. Jalen Hurts and Crime Dog.
Crime Dog. All right, let's do a real quick rundown of the upcoming bowl games. Now we don't have to pick them.
No.
All right.
We're going over the New Year's Six.
Yeah,
right?
just-
let's look at the New Year's, the
New
big
Year's
six.
Six games.
Yeah, they call them New Year's Six because they played New Year's Eve, the 30th, starting the 30th and then 31st. These are the six biggest bowl games, including the 2 playoff games.
Well,
Right, let's go through them
You
real
know,
quick.
they actually go on into January 2nd.
January 2nd.
But yeah, the Orange Bowl, Tennessee, Clemson.
Oh, man. Looking forward to that one. That's going to be
Lots
good.
and lots and lots of orange in the Orange Bowl. It's perfect made for TV. These are teams that hardly ever play each other. A couple of times in history they've played each other. Clemson, a perennial powerhouse these days. Tennessee not having this sudden great year. Be interesting to see the matchup. You know, with these bowl games, the biggest question becomes who's playing.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And
playing?
it's a major impact. You know, opt-outs to the NFL. I'm keeping an eye on that. You know, the Clemson Tigers have 2 front 4 guys on their defensive line that are going to be top 10 draft picks, including Brian Bresee. You know, a big defensive tackle, was recruited number 1 in the nation when he came out. And he's had 3 great years. Was injured some last year, but it'll be interesting to see what those 2 defensive linemen for Clemson do. Tennessee, of course, you know, playing with their backup quarterback Joe Milton, and now it looks like the Clemson Tigers are going to be starting a freshman quarterback, Cade Klubnik. We saw him do a good job against North Carolina as DJ Ungale has entered the transfer portal. So interesting storylines. You know, lots of things can happen in the next 3 weeks. Look for those opt-outs and transfer portals, as Scott said, because that's going to definitely impact a lot of these football games.
Amari Thomas, Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah.
Will they even play? It remains to be seen. Alabama, Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl. Few people I would think wanted to see an Alabama Clemson game. I mean, we see that just about every year.
Yeah.
So even though Kansas State's a 4-loss team, they are a conference champion. But again, for Alabama, and look, this is no fault to Alabama. They're used to being in the playoff.
Yeah.
We see sometimes other teams like Clemson, Ohio State, used to being in the playoff. They don't get in. They don't perform well in the bowl game. A lot of their players don't play. Who's Alabama going to be missing, you think?
Well, you know, I think Bryce Young and Will Anderson, their top 2 players, that could possibly opt out for the NFL. So does this bandage
Look,
in?
they just have nothing to play for in this bowl.
Yeah, I mean,
these draft picks, these known draft picks, I don't blame them. It's about their future. They're protecting their bodies. That extra 30 days of practice and then that game after taking a month off, which I think we need to fix all that, but after taking a month off, come in and play 1 game, it's just not a good career move if you're projected as a draft pick. And I don't think just a first-round draft pick. To me, if you're – and Alante Taylor did it last year, and it paid off for him. If you're projected as a draft pick in the NFL, I personally would not play in my last bowl game.
Yeah, and in these New Year's Six games, especially these big games, it's going to be interesting to watch. Of course, Alante had an ankle injury too that helped him make that decision. But I'm wondering from an Alabama standpoint, what's the motivation of this game? I think this game is more attractive now that Kansas State is the Big 12 champ. They won the game instead of lost. I think they were going to be locked in there regardless of what happened. And, since TCU's loss, put them in the playoffs. So does this brandish in the Ty Simpson area for Alabama? My boss, Greg Driver, knows a guy out of West Tennessee. We gave him a call today. He knows Ty Simpson. He knows his family. He coached him for 3 years in middle school in baseball. And he compares Ty Simpson to Joey Burrow. And I know those are big. I've heard him compared to Brett Favre. But I point blank asked him, I said, what's going to be the drop-off between Bryce Young and Ty Simpson? He said, I think Ty's going to be able to handle the job. And he's known him for all his life. He knows his family. And so it would not surprise me. And look, to me, if Bryce Young's going to be gone, what's the benefit of him playing that one game from a team standpoint? Give those reps to your other two quarterbacks. Let them start fighting it out for next year, Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson for that starting quarterback position in Alabama. And maybe they won't take a transfer in. I like the old school way of it. Hey, sign, develop, battle it out. That's the way I like a quarterback battle done.
What's the new school way?
New school way is grab a Caleb Williams out of the transfer portal or a Hendon Hooker and just instant starter. Or Spencer Rattler.
Hendon
That's
Hooker
what these teams are doing
actually
now.
got beat out for the job by Joe Milton III. Yeah. So.
Well, that was a
Didn't
bad
hand him the
decision. We
start.
saw that from the first day he played.
What were they
Milton was
looking
throwing
at,
it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's don't know where that came from. But, this day and age, it's just instant gratification. Just transfer to whoever you want to. The Justin Flo, the number one linebacker in the nation, signed by the Oregon, is entered the portal now. Now he's available. So we'll see. These guys now looking for new NIL money, and they're going everywhere, man. It's free agents, open free agency. Look at that USC team, Scott. 4-8 last year. 1 win away from being in the playoffs. 4-8 last year, 19 guys they brought in from the transfer portal. You don't got to wait for that signing class to develop those 25 guys no more. You may play 5, 6, 7, or 10 of those guys. Just go to the portal and get a proven commodity. Go grab the left tackle from Oklahoma. Go grab a safety that's back up at Ohio State. They're going to be better than who's on your roster. Go get them. And that's what teams are doing. USC did it, and that's what Tulane did. They went from 2-10, won their conference championship, 11 ball games. Look what the transfer portal can do for a team now.
College football has completely changed over the last 2 years. And Ken's talking about what we're seeing. Penn State, Utah in the Rose Bowl. That'll be January 2nd. Very unusual for the Rose Bowl to be on January 2nd. But the first is on a Sunday. And we know who owns Sundays on television. It's not college football. Penn State and Utah, I don't know. That sounds like a slugfest, doesn't it? Both teams, neither team very
physical,
explosive offensively.
Yeah,
both teams want to run it down your throat, play solid defense, all that stuff.
I'll be rooting for Whittingham over James Franklin.
Every day of the week. Cotton Bowl, Southern Cal at Tulane. It's just weird to see Southern Cal in the Cotton Bowl because I'm so old. But they fall to the Cotton Bowl against Tulane. USC's liable to not have 20 players playing, so and Tulane's liable to too. I didn't realize they had that many out of the transfer portal, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see USC get beat right there.
Well, look, if TCU's not the best story in college football this year, it's certainly the Tulane Green Wave. Look, I love their uniforms. I love their logo on their helmets. I'd put them in top 5 uniforms and helmet logos in college football. That that lime green and that bright light blue, cool looking logos on their helmets. They go from 2-10 to win 11 games this year. I'll be rooting definitely for Tulane to win again in that one.
Fiesta Bowl has Michigan against TCU. We've talked about that. Peach Bowl, Georgia and Ohio State, and then the national championship game will be on the 9th?
Yes.
January the 9th.
And I think it's in Pasadena or somewhere in California.
Rose Bowl.
There you
go. Maybe it's in SoFi. Who knows? Anyway,
Yep.
That's a rundown of your bowls. Let's take a look at the SEC bowl bids real quick. For the ones that we haven't gone over, the Las Vegas Bowl finds Florida going against Oregon State. Oregon State, a really solid year. Man, That's going to be a tough game for Florida.
Yeah, it is. And, we're talking about this is where bragging rights for conference is coming in, head-to-head competition. SEC against Pac-12, SEC against Big Ten, SEC against Big 12. Scott, I know you don't root for any of the SEC teams.
That's right.
And but look, hey, conference bragging rights are at stake here. So Anthony Richardson opted out to the NFL. So and then the backup quarterback, Kitten, is facing felony child porn charges at Florida. So I don't know who in the world is going to play quarterback for the Florida Gators in that game.
Well, they probably will play better than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, Jalen Kitten is the backup quarterback that's facing those charges.
Right.
John Kitna's son.
He's going to Anthony Richardson's going to make somebody a fine tight end. The Mortgage Gasparillo Bowl, do we have any idea where that is?
No, that's
Missouri and Wake Forest squaring off. Wake Forest, one of the better teams in the Cupcake Conference. Missouri, one of the worst teams in the SEC. Somehow battled their way into a bowl game. And I look for Wake Forest to beat the snot out of Missouri right now.
That'll be a close one. Two evenly matched teams, really.
The Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Kansas and Arkansas. That ought to get a really nice crowd there in Memphis.
It'll be cold, normally cold there, in Memphis during this time of year. So we'll see.
It's pretty cold everywhere in early January.
So, but Arkansas, not a long way to go for that one, and we'll see how if the Razorbacks can finish with a win. They started out so hot, such a promising season. KJ Jefferson, the quarterback, got hurt, and they fell off the deep end. Losing to Missouri the last game of the season, of the regular season.
The Texas Bowl, Texas Tech, Ole Miss. Nobody fell off at the end quite like Ole Miss did. They get stuck playing Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl. Do we know where in Texas the Texas Bowl is?
I think that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Ole Miss on that game.
They couldn't even get up. They couldn't get up for games once they got eliminated from the playoff.
Yeah.
Much less getting up for a bowl game.
Pick the over on this game. There's going to be lots of points in that football
Texas
game.
Tech and Ole Miss.
Lots of points.
The Gator Bowl, South Carolina and Notre Dame. South Carolina just overachieved toward the end of the year. Who knows if they bring that same kind of fire, they'll beat Notre Dame. I wouldn't pick them, but if they bring that same kind of fire, they'll beat the Irish.
Yeah, I've got a star by the SEC games that are not at New Year's Six games. That's the best game, I think, of any of these that we're going over the SEC games outside the Tennessee and Alabama games, of course, in the Georgia game. But South Carolina, Notre Dame, definitely going to be a must-see game for me.
The Music City Bowl in Nashville, Kentucky and Iowa. Music City Bowl loves getting Kentucky fans. They love to come to Nashville.
Oh, they do. Well, maybe they'll can catch a doubleheader and go over to Memorial Gym. Maybe the Wildcats, the basketball team, will be playing Vanderbilt that weekend as well.
The ReliaQuest Bowl, which I have no idea where that is. Mississippi State and Illinois. I like this matchup. You've got Illinois, Brett Bielema as a head coach. They challenged for a little while, kind of fell off there at the end. They had to play the tough teams, but you're talking about wanting to pound. Illinois wants to pound. That's what Brett Bielema does. And then, of course, Mississippi State under Mike Leach is an air raid offense. So two really contrasting styles in the ReliaQuest Bowl. I think that's going to be a fun game to watch.
I agree with you. Watch it, the lines of scrimmage, as you said, the offensive line for the Fighting Illini going against that defensive front of Mississippi State. I was impressed in the Egg Bowl with their physicality. They got some big dudes up on that defensive line, man. So I think that's going to be a really good ball game.
I think kids like to play for Mike Leach.
They do, yeah.
He's a player's coach. And then the Citrus Bowl, you can spell citrus without UT. LSU and Purdue. This is just like the poor, pitiful, got your ass kicked in the conference championship bowl.
Yeah.
But it's a nice bowl in Orlando.
Yeah.
People is the Outback in Orlando? Anyway, it's in Florida somewhere. And it's a nice bowl. People like going there. It was climbing the status of bowls to where it was getting to be a really nice, the Citrus and Outback were getting to be really nice bowls. And then the playoff came in and just killed all that.
Well, those kids will have a good time. They'll have some nice steaks at Outback and those blooming onions. So, hey, man, that's a perk in itself, right?
A blooming onion.
Yes. Yes,
All right, so
indeed.
there's your SEC bowl bids, and we'll talk more about these games as they get closer and really get down to picking them and that sort of thing. Before we get out of here tonight, we do want to hand out some participation trophies. Ken, what is it?
What do y'all say about trophies? Gold Ball Sports, where participation trophies simply don't cut it.
Your participation trophy, my friend.
You really want me to go first? Okay.
Yes.
So this is episode 11. So you've heard of the Elite 11 quarterback camp, the top 11 quarterbacks in the nation. I've started a new club. The Breakfast Club was pretty cool. It's a movie I like. That was a pretty cool club. But after watching all this venom and hate of these elite national broadcasters and sportscasters and these announcers and all these football experts, I've created a new club tonight here at Gold Ball Sports, and I'm going to make these people even more famous than they are, because these 11 men are going to share this one participation trophy, because these 11 men are part of the Bama Hater Club. Okay? We talked about a couple of them earlier, so I'm going to give you the list of the top 11 Bama haters as portrayed through the football media circles. Doesn't matter where they work, for ESPN, I call it ESPN, put a little I in there, ESPIN, Fox Network, it doesn't matter, CBS, ABC, cast all of them in it. Let's start out with Danny Cannell. Danny Cannell, Florida State homer, hates the SEC, hates Alabama. Danny Cannell, you're on the list. It's random order, but you are qualified. You are in the top 11. Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk, why do you continue to use your platform as the most powerful guy in football to influence this college football committee? You came out, you called that game with Chris Fowler. Scott said you called that game. You did. He listened. I listened. The last 5 minutes of that game, when you figured out that TCU was going to lose, you didn't even mention the word Alabama or anything of that nature, because you was already politicking and apologizing for TCU's loss. Shame on you, Kirk Herbstreit. You influence the committee every single year. You make the Bama 11 hater list, Kirk Herbstreit on the list. The next man up, Booger McFarland. No introduction needed. He's an LSU homer. He hates Alabama. He speaks angry every time he talks, especially when Nick Saban or Alabama comes up. Booger McFarland, you are in the Bama Hater Club. Who's next? Dan Mullen. This one surprised me. I've been listening to you all year, Dan Mullen. You're 0-11 against Nick Saban, but you have become one of the biggest Alabama haters. But I can understand why. If I had a record of 0-11 against a team and that coach, I probably would hate him too. Jesse Palmer, the Canadian. I think you would better be served to leave ESPN and go call Canadian football somewhere, because that's where you're from, Canada. Jesse Palmer, chief Alabama hater. You are in the Bama Hater Club. Who's next? David Pollock. David Pollock of the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm calling all you guys out. You know you would rather play TCU or even Ohio State as opposed to Alabama. You were politicking. You thought you was going to get TCU, but it backfired. I hope the Buckeyes skull drag your Georgia Bulldogs in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. David Pollock, you do not call it right, okay? You do not call it the way you see it. You politic, and you're part of the problem, okay, with the Bama Hater Club. David Pollock, you definitely qualify. Who's next? Just as important, Paul Feinbaum. Been very disappointed in you, Paul. Tennessee graduate, you built your fortune on Alabama football and your little radio show that's now so big for so many years. You've done a great job. I once respected you, Paul, but you went off the deep end this year. Paul Feinbaum, you are on the Bama Hater Club. You have made it. Joel Klatt of Fox Sports, you're a Colorado Buffalo quarterback. Okay, you're a pretty smart guy. I listen to you. I like you the way you call games. But, man, you was wrong on this college football playoff. You've been hating on Alabama all year, not just this year, but over the years. This is a Lifetime Achievement Award. Joe Klatt, congratulations. You got Deion Sanders out there now. Maybe he'll turn the Buffaloes around. and make him a winner again. Clay Travis. Clay, you've been hiding for a long time. I know your son likes Alabama. Tennessee's not had a winner in a long time. You chilled out for a long time. But this year you've come out of the woodworks, and you're a prominent member of this Bama Hater Club, and you have been spewing the venom this year against Alabama. Congratulations, you made the list. Barrett Salee. Got 2 more. It's winding down. Barrett Salee, classic Auburn Tiger. Alabama hate. The venom, the vitriol spews from your mouth. You're an Alabama hater. You're biased against the Alabama program. You made the list. Congratulations, Barrett Salee. And last but not least, Alabama's own national championship winning quarterback. I'm no respecter of persons. I call it the way I see it. Greg McElroy. You go so hard out of your way with ESPN, to get jabs in on your old team, Alabama. I know you're from Texas, man, but you won a national championship in 2009. You ought to be ashamed at the way you treat the program at the University of Alabama. Nick Saban, your former players, your teammates, all of them, man. You qualify on this list on the official Bama Hater Club, Greg McElroy. And the rest of this list, Scott, these guys win my participation trophy for the Elite 11 official Bama Hater Club as indoctrinated, as installed tonight on Go Ball Sports, episode 11. Congratulations, guys. You won the participation trophy here at Go Ball Sports. Our first ever, 11 guys.
That's so good. That is priceless television right there.
I got to make one more thing I was going to say. I will invite any of you 11 right here. We got room. I'll buy your dinner. You come to Tullahoma, Tennessee, I'll take you to Red Lobster. It's all on me. Wherever you want to go, Red Lobster, Ruby Tuesdays, come here and debate me. And any one of you 11, tell me, look into this camera straight and tell this audience why you think TCU is a better football team than Alabama. Come on. I got a spot for you right here. We'll debate it all day long.
We're going to get out of here. Most of these announcers mentioned Alabama. As soon as it became obvious TCU was going to lose, they started talking about how Alabama could get in the playoffs. So really what Ken's saying is if you're not openly cheering for Alabama, then you're an Alabama hater.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
That's exactly
this
what you
list is
mean.
official. I've ratified it tonight.
It's a dirty dozen, my brother. It's a dirty dozen because you left one off.
Give me one more name. We got to go with the dandy dozen.
Clifford Scott Chastain, media member, official Alabama hater. I had one.
How could I omit you?
But it cannot compete with that. That's a segment. That's a show in itself. Ken's classic Dirty Dozen Alabama media haters.
Hater Club.
Awesome.
Bama Hater
It's going to
Club.
wrap it up for episode 11. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at YouTube/@GoldBallSports. Like us and follow us on Facebook. For Diamond Dave and Ken Keller, I'm Scott Chastain. Be good to each other.